Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Abigail Pogrebin. Daniel Finkelman is a New York-based director and producer and the founder of Sparks Go and Daniel Finkelman Films. He is the creator and producer of One Day in October, which we're going to talk about today. It's a scripted anthology series based on true survival stories from the October 7th attacks. It is now streaming on HBO Max, and it is truly one of the most extraordinary series I've ever seen.
كنت لك مخلص عليك.
Dust freckles my face was I always lying here.
هاتي بسدة.
Back to my feet I rise, blinded by my disguise, but does it really matter? Back to my feet I rise, hands reach to amber skies. Are you the dawn? Are you the night? Dancing in the teens, flashing off me low. Lead to you.
He is also the lead producer of The Performance, starring Jeremy Piven and Robert Carlyle, which premiered at major international film festivals and is slated for wide release. Finkelman first gained recognition with Menashe, which screened at Sundance and Berlinale, followed by The Vigil, which premiered at TIFF. We are also joined by Chaya Amor, the producer of One Day in October. Based in New York and working internationally between New York and Tel Aviv, Chaya is a partner and producer at Sparks Go, creative marketing director at Kino Lime, and the founder of Amor Films. Her producing work includes award-winning films such as The Vigil and The Performance. Welcome, Daniel and Chaya. Thank you for being with us. And it's a mouthful because you've already accomplished so much, but I really want to focus on One Day in October. It's an extraordinary series. There's 7 episodes. Let's start with you, Daniel, since you were the creator. What was the idea for creating something that hadn't been said about these horrific attacks?
You know, when October 7th happened, everyone was seeing the chaos, the politics, the numbers. But what was missing was the heartbeat behind the headlines. And I and Chaya and the rest of the team, we felt the need to really give those stories that heartbeat that was necessary, because we realized that the only vaccine against the hate that we've seen all over Telegram and social media is history. Telling those stories, and the best medium to do that is storytelling. So we realized, okay, we're not going to be doing another documentary, and that's important too, but that does preach to the echo chamber. In order for us to really get out and really tell those stories in a way where it's accepted on a universal front would be to utilize media, what we call the entertainment space. And so we started taking those stories and creating a scripted show from them.
And before we go to Chaya, what's really striking is that they are true stories, but it's a smaller snapshot, each one of them. It's like instead of the whole canvas, you're zeroing in on one family, one person, one partnership. How did you determine which stories to focus on? And were there some that you actually thought you were going to shoot and ended up abandoning?
Oh, absolutely. There were some stories that we were certain that we're going with that direction, but it didn't end up happening. You know, if it usually takes a village to make a movie, over here it took much more than that. Mind you, we've been doing this story about the war during wartime while running into shelters. Everything was so raw, and it came with a huge responsibility for us, the filmmakers. We're holding their stories literally in our hands. We're holding their hearts in our hands. And so some of them who said, yes, I'm in, dropped out. Some of them took a lot of convincing. I mean, took a lot of, we came to one of the stories with the Bedouins. You remember we came into that Bedouin village and we drank like 10 cups of coffee because they told us the only way we're going to do a deal with you is if you drink the coffee. And
we drank so much coffee. I was shaking at the end, but a deal on coffee is really,
And just to explain for those, you have someone, an Israeli, she's on the kibbutz that is on the bike.
Yes,
in the beginning,
exactly.
And she ends up hiding with a Bedouin.
Yes.
And there's just the tension around him being Arab and her being Jewish, and they're basically hunkered down together under a tree for hours and hours. It's just, it is just to call it suspenseful is minimizing the tension of that scene.
Yeah, and they were, some of them were paranoid. Some of them were like, who are these Americans coming in, guns blazing, wanting to create a Hollywood piece from our personal story? We're still bleeding. Everything is still raw. Mm. But we proved it to them by actually being there with them in the shelter. We literally relocated.
Wow.
And been there for almost 2 years now in Israel, making this happen.
And so, I just want to say, Abby, I love that you brought in the Bedouins actually as an example, because when Daniel and I have to give credit obviously to the rest of our amazing, amazing team, Oded Davidov, the director and creator as well of the show, and Lee and Aviv Cooperman, Lee Cooperman and Aviv Ben Shlush, who are our producing partners. They're the Israeli producers that joined us from the beginning, so that means a lot. Incredible. But when we went into the creative war room together and we thought about like what is the purpose of the show, first and foremost, the truth storytelling, as Daniel said, that's exactly what it was. But also, as you said, like what was the goal? Like how do we pick the stories and what is the goal of our show? Because is it one running story? Like how do we go about this? Also, this is happening, we started 2 months after October 7th.
Yeah, it was soon.
So soon. So it's like, we know that the stories are still developing. There's so much at that time thinking about of the hostages and so much of the stories that haven't been told yet. So it was also really important that we had our goal set, which was, okay, for starters, Israel is so underrated with how multicultural it is. I mean, it's a tiny country, and the amount of communities and really communities, religions, backgrounds is so diverse. We were like, October 7th didn't affect Jews, it affected Israel. And it was really important that we told the story of October 7th. So for us, it was very important that we chose stories that went beyond just the Jewish narrative that was told. And that was like the Bedouin story was really important for us. And we didn't care how much coffee we needed to drink. We were like, we really need to tell this story.
There's also so much denial that happened right away, and questioning of actual facts, actual suffering. And so I want to let's talk about some of the snapshots. I know we can't talk about all 7, but you have 2 friends who are going to the Nova Festival, and there were so many stories coming out of the Nova. What was special about these 2 women? If you can explain, maybe give us a little précis of what happens there.
Of course. I mean, at the end of the day, each story holds a lot of weight. The story is holding the weight of the Nova Festival. That's really what that story was. So obviously, first and foremost, there's not a lot of survivors that were willing to tell their story, especially as fresh as it was. But what we felt really important about that story was the friendship, the connection that they had between each other. And mind you, they were on acid, right? They're tripping, they're at this festival. And we were like, this is a story that hopefully let's just say the younger generation who understand about going to festivals and who are on acid or just want peace and love in life, and they end up in a situation like this, and how their friendship and connection like kept them through. And it was such
Amit and Gali.
Amit and Gali.
And they end up basically in a
They end up in a porta potty,
Right.
which we're not going to give too much away because we really want people to
want
watch.
it.
But they end up in a porta potty, and again, like also the view of them. Most of the series, most of that specific episode takes place with them in the porta potty, because it was really important for us to tell the story exactly how they saw their story.
Right.
We didn't add anything.
They had the claustrophobia,
Exactly.
the panic of hearing what was happening around them,
Not knowing, hearing, not knowing what's happening to them.
and Hamas fighters shooting into porta potties to make
hearing
sure
that people getting raped. Like
Yes.
this was all a part of it.
Right.
Like this was, and what are they going through while they're going through all of this? So it was really important that you can relate to them exactly how they were, and I think it's very relatable.
It's also just so powerful that at the end of every episode, you see the real people. I mean, I feel like I cried every time.
Same.
And it's done in a way that's not a big reveal. It's almost like they suddenly
Seamless.
show up.
Yeah.
It's suddenly like there's the real face.
I mean, how more to make a reality than the reality itself?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like not only it's real, it's like it just double whams you.
But you also see them interacting with the actors in a way that's moving for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
what was the thinking there, Daniel, of them actually meeting, or sometimes you have the real people watching the shoot?
It's part of us relaying that message in the show, which history isn't abstract, it's personal. Each and every story, and history is rooted from the word story, right? These are the stories that are going to write the history, as Chaya always says, the history books of the future. And we wanted to show that it's as personal as it gets. These are not just hired actors coming in and portraying those characters. There's a connection. The survivors were with us on set. They were actually managing the details, making sure that everything is as authentic as possible. And that that meet at the end of each episode really demonstrates how we had everybody involved.
It was a collaboration.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it also, you feel the authenticity. I mean, I think part of what's miraculous about this, I'll be honest, I sort of dreaded watching it because I thought, haven't I
Yeah.
seen it all? Don't I
Yes,
know it all?
exactly.
To me, in a way, it's the strongest document yet.
I agree.
And I think you're biased, Chaya.
No, but here's the thing, right? The first thing that dies out any war, right? It's like is the truth. Right? That's the first thing that goes. And the reason why is because when it gets all, muddled, that's when you can, do your evil. That's when you can do your worst. So a goal of it was...
And when you say do your evil,
not us, but the
right.
evil ideologies to
Right.
kind of just come and take over was when the truth gets all muddled with, political,
Right.
ideologies. It's just sitting on the truth, right? So the idea of the show really is the people. They are the show. So for us, we don't want to exploit this is it. Us exploiting anything or making it something negative or making it for our own interest actually takes away from what we were trying to do.
So let me ask about the decision not to show anything that's really graphic or almost too bloody. It's like you, as you said, you suggested. I mean, we're hearing the sounds. Often it's what we hear, the screams, the running, the voices, the panic. But I appreciated that in a way you weren't re-traumatizing the viewer, and it feels very deliberate. That's not there. Can you just explain the thinking there?
I mean, there was two folds to it. The first thing was what did the victim, or let's just say survivor, hero, see, right? So again, most of them didn't see what we saw in the news. Most of them didn't see the big mass of what's happening. Most of them were individualized in a room, in a ditch, in something. So it's very important for you we're with them in their story. And it also adds to it when you hear it, but you don't know, right? They don't know. So that was really important. And also we did want to make it watchable, because the point of it also is that you can digest it and have a conversation. It isn't there to attack you. So how do we make you
That's a
part
great
of this
point.
journey? And it is about having a conversation. It's about sitting on a couch and being like, wow, like let's just talk about the details. That is a big part of it. That whole like massacre is a big part of it. But what's a bigger part is the individual stories and chaos that everyone went through.
And what Chaya is also touching on is just how kind of patchwork information was. Like
Oh, yeah.
you see that it's text, it's WhatsApp, it's something you hear, it's people observing Simchat Torah and Shabbat and not being on the radio and not being on their phones.
Exactly.
So people aren't getting a full picture for so long, and that is running through all 7 episodes. Can you talk about that, Daniel?
Yes.
Yes. The episodes are really trying to portray what went inside the heads of those people. And you said it well. They didn't see the whole picture. But we want to see what went in their heads. What were they thinking? For example, the 2 girls in the bathroom, as you said before, it touched about friendship. What we like to say is, we're not here to create a monument with this show. We're here to show you a mirror. And each and every episode, what we're trying to do is show people a mirror and ask themselves, what if those 2 girls were my daughters? What if they were my sisters, my best friends? What would it be if it would be me hiding in that ditch together with that Bedouin? Would I be able to survive? What would be my priorities? And this is exactly the message I hope to convey through this show is, what are our priorities? How do we prioritize everything in our personal lives ever since October 7th? For me personally, that's what it did. It reprioritized everything.
Yeah. Hi, I want to just talk about the episode Home. It's episode 5. I have to mention that Michael Aloni is in it from Shtisel, who is a heartthrob for many watching. It is just an extraordinary episode of a couple and their baby trying to stay alive while their home is burned on a kibbutz. I won't give away, but I have to say it's almost helpful when you say making it watchable that in every one of these episodes you are hearing from someone who survived.
Yes.
It allows me to almost go through it knowing I'm going to see them at the end alive.
Yeah. It's not there to traumatize you.
It's not there to traumatize you, but just
give you access.
Creating the reality of that, I'm sure was just filmically, I don't even know the technical world. How did you approach really the fire, the intensity, 2 people basically with like kitchen knives trying to stay alive and keep their daughter from being overcome by the smoke and obviously...
You want to know more of like the production element, like the details of
well,
how
and also the thinking on how to make that episode work, I guess.
Yeah, the thought process of that was actually, it was one of the harder episodes because a big part of the story, again, I'm going to give away a bit, but was that she was in a coma for a couple of months.
Afterwards.
And
The mother.
So the mother was in a coma for a couple of months afterwards, literally directly after that, like after she escaped from her home. So she held her family together and then she went into a coma. And it was difficult because we wanted to show the perspective of the aftermath of October 7th, but also starting with October 7th, right? So she went through so much. She was able to hear her daughter and her husband and all of that she went through, but yet she was in a coma, and all of that
so she remembers actually hearing them,
yes,
but still. Okay.
Yes, so and she had visions, and all of these things were a big part of the storytelling. It changes and shapes the story so much. So I mean, at the end of the day, it was we really wanted to tell it from her perspective, because first of all, as a nurse and as a doctor, she was able to save her family. Also with the mother, and just that whole, and then also with the fact that she was in a coma and how that, transpired and took place, and she decided to have a child after. So again, I'm giving a lot away.
It's okay.
But
people are going to watch this episode anyway. I
but
promise.
each episode really had its own challenges because some of them, we started with just the day of, and then some of them really happened over it's kind of like a few months almost kind of perspective. However, with their specific episode, I think what makes it really special was the fact that, there's a baby involved. So it was, something that we got to meet the daughter. Her daughter was, again, like they're all a part of that story.
And she's still so young.
So young, and
Yeah.
the baby that acted her was such a wonderful.
Yeah, wow.
She was so wonderful.
Unbelievable.
Think about, honestly, when I think about the strength of Israelis, and when I say Israelis, I mean as a whole, Jewish and not Jewish, it's just like you see, like even the younger children, when they're there on set and you have the sirens that go off and everything, but how everybody is like, they're really level-headed. Even as a young child, you think of the security, and of course we make sure that everything is as safe as possible. Again, you can't guarantee.
Okay, let's go to a clip from that.
צריך איך לשטוף את הכוויות. קום כבר!
Daniel, I'd love you to talk about the episode with Sabine. Is it Sabine?
Yes.
And just briefly, because we're already running out of time.
Okay.
Sabine, who lost her husband Gil and her son Or on October 7th. And I just had this conversation with her in Atlanta when we just had the screening, and I asked her more details about that. She was separated. They were going through a divorce, a bitter divorce. They were not fond of each other, let's just say that. And yet, when the moment of truth came and that grenade by Hamas was thrown, he jumped on that grenade, and the last words out of his mouth.
Just to be clear before you say that, he was in a shelter in his home with two of his boys,
Right.
two of their boys.
Outside their home.
And outside their home. And he decides to basically sacrifice his life.
Sacrifice his life to save his two boys. And the last words were, "I'm not afraid to die. Go save Ima." And she says it, this is the person that I thought was not a good dad, not a good husband, with my rage at that moment. But then I realized, hey, he died for my kids, for our kids. And what was he thinking about in his last moments on the earth? About me. Go save your mother. Which gives us this perspective, hence the perspective that I mentioned earlier. What are we fighting for with our spouses? Let's take a perspective and realize everything has a moment.
And what's also sort of a devastating moment is when you see that Sabine wants to, is it Sabine?
Yeah.
Wants to tell her story, is being asked to tell her story, but she's almost being, I don't want to say it like commodified, almost used by European media at a certain point, and they only want to hear so much of her story. And you see already that they're already going to that. There's context. There's a larger context here. There's kind of we're not going to just let you tell your story of immense loss without giving kind of an anti-Israel perspective. And I understand that the Gaza war is real and the Palestinian loss of life was real, and that is maybe for another show. But I just wonder, as you apply that same kind of skepticism to your piece, have you seen anyone say, well, these stories are important, but there's a context?
Of course.
So talk about that a little bit.
We're getting a lot of pushback. We're getting a lot of pushback on social media. And even some would even dare to say it. But we're telling them, listen, and I know we have our own difference on that, but we're telling them, hey, we get it. We get it. There was a loss of life. and we care. But first and foremost,
You mean on the Palestinian side?
on the Palestinian side. But first and foremost, we also have stories. We're also human, and this is us. Don't dehumanize us. Just because you're human doesn't mean we're not. So, and we're here to tell our stories, because if we're not, someone else will, and it won't be a good story to tell. And that's why we're doing this show.
Yeah, the reason why Daniel and I disagree when he says also human, I just feel like it somehow makes us sound like subhuman. And in general, I just feel like there's the division of just good and evil. And if that's it, I don't really feel
That's
like
your demarcation.
That's it. I just think there's no subhuman.
We're all human.
You are all human in general, and then there's the people that are doing good, and then hopefully the people who need to learn how to do better. That's it.
And I'll add and say, I do care about all humans. I do. I care about the Palestinian side. I care about their children being dead, and I'll say it. And I'm not, I'm not on any side, but I care more about my own family and telling their stories, because if we won't, no one else will.
And what we care most about is not politicizing the situation and making sure that it stays true to the stories themselves.
Thank you. And when you think about how you want people to use this, if they want to use it educationally, I mean, is that something that was a goal of yours, or is that kind of a byproduct if it happens?
Well, first of all, definitely it's education. At the end of the day, what feels like now is so muddled, just as I said, because of, political views and ideas and opinions. And what Daniel said is very true in the sense of when someone says, but our side, every side is important to tell. There is no but in a conversation. It's not about this or that. It's about these are true stories. We need to tell all of them so that the future generations, when all of the smoke disappears, they have the true stories to be able to be like, this is what happened and this is the outcome. That is it. There's stories to tell on every front of every war, and they need to be told by the people that understand those stories. We understand the stories that we are telling, and everybody else understands their story. So it's very important as an educational piece, because I think when the smoke is up, these at the end of the day are going to be the history facts that people will be able to look on. Yeah.
And additionally, I want to also acknowledge the Simon Wiesenthal Center, along with Moriah Films, who have collaborated with us, and our partners at Fox Entertainment, headed by Fernando, Dina, Miriam, Ian, and others. And it has been a great collab with the Simon Wiesenthal Center / the Tolerance Museum in LA. We have been going on a whole tour around the country with the survivors and the show, from city to city, screening the episodes, talking about it, and about to launch a massive tour as well, screening tour on college campuses all across the country.
Fantastic.
So on the educational front, that's exactly our goal.
And if someone wants to reach you, how do they do that if we want to put something up? Is there a website? Or if
There is.
We do.
One Day in October, the number 1 dayinoctober.com.
Daniel Finkelman and Chaya Amor, I cannot thank you enough for
Thank you
this
for having
just
us.
beautiful series. I really hope everyone watches it. One Day in October on HBO. What could be easier, right?
Yes.
I'm Abigail Pogrebin for In the Spotlight. Thank you for being with us, and I'll see you next time.